AITA for giving my stepson's room to my daughter? I'll try to keep this short. I've been married to my wife for over a year now, have a stepson, 14 meters, and a biological daughter, 9F. When we married, my wife and I agreed that I would sell my house and move into hers because there's more living space. Stepson already had his own room, so my daughter got the extra bedroom, which is smaller than his. It was fine at first, but my daughter has a lot of stuff and soon it became too small, cramped for her. Stepson also only lives with us part-time, 5 days with us, 9 days with bio dad, and has a huge room at his dad's. My daughter lives with us full-time, so this is her only room. It seemed to me that the logical thing would be for my daughter to have the larger room since she has more stuff, and spends all of her time here. Wife was hesitant at first and felt like my stepson would be upset and feel like he's being pushed aside, but I convinced her that my daughter needed the space more, so she ultimately agreed. We ended up switching rooms this week, freshly painted them, and my wife did some shopping for stepson's new room so he'd feel special. He came home from his dad's and we surprised him with his new room. He reacted okay, thanked us for the new stuff and didn't seem upset at first. But now he's been moping and has been cold to all of us. Wife is now regretting our choice and upset at me for convincing her that it would be fine. Definitely agree here. My dad once dated a woman who did the same thing to me. My dad had a 4-bedroom house. I was in the second biggest room. Considering when I was at Mum's, which was most of the time, I was sharing my room with a baby. I was 10 at the time and the room at Mum's was small. When I would go to Dad's, I loved that I had a big room. My brother also had a room at Dad's. They were our childhood bedrooms. They were the ones Mum decorated and set up for us. All our stuff was in them and they were decorated the way we wanted. I know at the time I only spent every second weekend and at least 2 weeks every holidays with him, but only cause he lived 2 hours away. Imagine my surprise when I went there one weekend and went to my room to find it wasn't my room. I was devastated. Between visits his GF decided that her daughter shouldn't have to sleep on the bottom bunk of my bed anymore and should have her own room. But apparently the smaller spare room wasn't big enough for all her stuff, so she had my dad move me into there. It wasn't big enough for my stuff either, and the girlfriend was always grounding me cause her demon child would blame things on me or make up stories about something I supposedly did, and of cause they never believed me. My visits got to the point where I never got to leave the house or my room, and on a Friday night when he picked me up from Mum before we saw the girlfriend, I would beg to stay with my grandparents, and I would. Thank he didn't stay with that woman long cause my uncle told him to open his eyes and see the damage he is letting that woman do to his daughter, and I got my room back, but it never felt the same again. Step-parents, partners can be awful sometimes, and it hurts more when your parent allows it. I lived with my mum but stayed over at my dad's every other weekend, so my sister and I shared a room at his house. We shared a room at my mum's too, so that was fine. We had our main toys at our mum's house, but we also kept some stuff at our dad's for when we were there, like Bratz dolls, and I had a big Barney the dinosaur plush I loved and kept there. And then my dad and his wife at the time, who always hated my sister and I, but especially me, were expecting a baby, and we stopped going over his house. We'd see him without his wife at his mother's house instead, and stay one night there while he went home. Fine. They had the baby, fine. But it continued like that for years until finally after like 4 years we got to go back to visiting his house. But we couldn't stay the night anymore because he'd given our bedroom to his new daughter. Makes sense I guess, though a little heads up would have been nice. But the kicker was, he gave all of our stuff to her too, without asking. Our Bratz, our books, our DVDs, my Tamagotchis, my beloved Barney plush. Everything else was, I assume, thrown out or donated. I don't care that I was, by that point, 13. I would have liked the chance to have kept what I wanted to keep. Barney the dinosaur may be for young kids, but he was a gift from my gran. And they had a small spare room too, mostly empty with a few boxes, bag of mostly my stepmom stuff, that they wouldn't even turn into a makeshift bedroom for my sister and I to stay in. So we got to spend hours there, instead of 2 to 3 days. So, I'm not a daddy's girl anymore like I was as a young kid. It sucks. I totally get the logistics from a parent's point of view, but it is also just abjectly cruel to oust a child from their usual bedroom without so much as a conversation, particularly when they rely on that room for stability in an unstable situation. My wife and I have a blended family. Fortunately, we don't have to deal with the childhood bedroom issue since we're currently in a rental where no one is used to their room, but I made it a priority in our budget for buying a house next year that all of the kids get their own space. My wife has the older two, mine is a toddler. Hopefully all of the kids' rooms will be similarly sized, but if not, I imagine that we'll just run down the oldest first train. It's going to take my daughter a long-ass time to realize that she has unequal space and the older two are used to sharing a room, so hopefully they'll be less unhappy about a perceived inequity and more satisfied with relative autonomy. Please give me an FYI if I'm about to shoot myself in the foot. I'm a child of divorce not that long ago, 15 years. So I think I know how it feels, but I also didn't have step-siblings until I was an adult. We're more like polite acquaintances and only two of us, briefly, lived together. What gets me is the part where they say they repainted the rooms and the wife bought stuff for the stepson's new room, to make him feel special. What? Oh, so not only did you oust a teenager from his room without so much as talking to him in advance, but you redecorated for him too? And you thought that would make him happy? What teenager even cares about a fresh coat of paint? You went through the hassle of painting and you didn't even let him pick the damn color? You think an adult woman is in tune with what a teenage boy wants in his room? Or that your average teenage boy wants his mother to pick his bedroom decor, furniture for him? You took all the potential fun of getting a new bedroom. How hard would it have been to sit him down and say, "Hey, your stepsister's room is too small for her and since she's here full-time and you are at your dad's more than you are here, we think it would be a good idea to switch you guys. We'll repaint the bedroom and you can pick the color. We'll also give you a budget of amount your wife spent. To set it up how you want it, I ask you." My sister and I are blood related, but when we moved our parents made us choose a room from those available secretly, on a piece of paper if I remember well, so that we wouldn't fight. Turns out I wanted one room, the one with the view, and she wanted the other one, cozier, and it wasn't even about the size of the rooms. We got what we wanted without a fight and were extremely happy. I don't know how they would have done it were we to want the same one. Maybe random, name on a piece of paper in a bag? All that to say maybe your kids will want different rooms regardless of size. Might be where it is in the house, like the toddler might feel better closer to your room. So you can ask them privately what they would like. The parents don't actually have any logistics for their pa. He said that the daughter has too much. Instead of maybe having her go through her things to donate what she doesn't really play with or wear, he decides to take the room that the stepson has lived longer than he has in the house and treated the place like he's longer. Appa's kicking him out and he only is upset because the wife isn't happy. And she's not happy because now she's realizing she should have been an actual good parent and she wasn't. My dad and stepmom had a 4-bedroom house. My sister and I shared a room when we stayed every other weekend while his 2 boys got a room each. At 11, I could understand that they got more space as they were there full time, but I was still secretly a bit jealous. Then stepmom decided she wanted a guest room. We turned up one weekend and all our stuff was gone. And our bunk beds had been replaced with a double bed. We had to share a bed that night, which at that awkward early teen phase just felt so embarrassing and humiliating. Everyone else had their own room and I wasn't even allowed my own bed. Never slept over at my dad's again after that. A bunch of other similar small incidents. Taking his other kids to Disney World and not inviting us, dropping us off early on his days because his kids had weekend sport clubs and they didn't have time for us, etc. It all culminated in me calling him to tell him I'd been accepted into university, and instead of congratulating me he just said, "Well, I hope you aren't expecting me to pay for it." After that I stopped making the effort to call and visit and he never bothered to get in touch again. Haven't spoken to him in 17 years now. Not only a heads up, but he's 14. He's old enough to not want you guys to basically invade his private space, go through his stuff to pack it up and move it, and then gift him a smaller space as a total blindside. You want to make a kid feel shoved aside? Because that's how you make a kid feel shoved aside. I think App bulldozed his wife into seeing his POV and arranged the change before the kid came back over so he wouldn't have a chance to disagree. Because once it's done, I mean you already painted and everything. You just can't switch back, surely you understand. The kid was only gone 9 days, App moved fast and with purpose. Good job alienating a 14-year-old boy, App. YTA exacto. Just by having a conversation and making him a part of the change could make all the difference. BC, I'm sure a mom's idea of his cool new room is probably vastly different from a 14-year-old boy. I honestly doubt OP's genuineness about feeling sorry. In a comment downstream, didn't hear anything about how he intended to try and right the wrong, which makes me feel he came here for validation, didn't find it, and is making some empty platitudes to bow out. I dislike that immensely.